I think.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see
Good evening.
everyone.
Howdy.
It's good to see everyone. We're the new setup tonight. Everything seems to be working, believe it or not. First go around. So we have with us Wayne tonight and Michael and Dr. Ricks as always. My friend on the other end, if you would start us out, that would be what. Oh, I got to introduce the program. We're at episode 583. Warning of a false rapture and end time prophecy. Is it tonight? But this is part 2. And part 1 got us like 600 plus 650, 70 views. So maybe this one will do as well. And then next week will be part 3. Dr. Ricks, it's all yours.
Okay. The Gipper was a great storyteller. One of his stories was while they were visiting the Soviet Union, one American was talking to an average Soviet citizen back in the Soviet era. And the American said, in America, we have freedom of speech. The Soviets said, yeah, we have freedom of speech also. The difference is that you're still free after you speak. A man was riding in his car and he saw this chicken on his right. He was doing 45 miles an hour. The chicken was keeping up with him. He couldn't believe it. And then the chicken accelerates ahead of him. Must be going at least 60. Cuts off into a little country road. So guys, I got to go down this country road and see what's going on. He pulls into the country road. He sees a farm with a big red barn. He says, do you know anything about these three-legged chickens? He said, yeah, we bred them. Especially, he said, why would you do that? He said, well, I like drumsticks, Ma likes drumsticks, and Junior likes drumsticks. He said, wow, what do they taste like? We don't know. Haven't been able to catch one yet. So, during a highway crash, this is another Reagan story, a guy looks over who's had a lot of training in first aid. He sees a woman bent over the victim of the crash. He pushes his way through the crowd. And he pushes the woman aside. He says, I've got some first aid training. What's your problem? So he works on him for a little while. He's still moaning. And the lady taps him on the shoulder and says, well, in your first aid training, when you get to the part about call a doctor, I'm right here. Okay. Now, this one's supposed to be a true story of bureaucracy gone wild. Reagan says there's a guy in the bureaucracy, and his documents went into the many, many layers of thousands of bureaucrats. He would look at the document, decide which office it went to, and initial it, and separate them all going to where they need to go to all those many departments. He got one day a document labeled top secret, looked it over, sent it to the right place. A week later, the document comes back to him and a note says, this document was top secret. You weren't supposed to see it or read it. So we want you to erase your initial off this top secret document, and then we want you to initial your erasure. Supposedly that's a true story about bureaucracy. I'm going to go to my pièce de résistance. This is from Susan Lewis. There's this bachelor. His bachelor apartment is dirty and dusty, looks bad. So his girlfriend asked him about it. Why don't you do something about it? And he says, well, you know that we come from dust and you return to dust. Might be somebody I know. See? You don't hear stories like that every day. It was too much even for the laugh box.
Oh, man.
Okay. Well, warning of a false rapture. This is part 2. More big events that have to precede the second coming. That's what we're looking at. More events that have to precede the second coming. And I was thinking, one of the events we said was Jerusalem being surrounded by hostile armies. That hasn't happened yet. But let's look Luke 21:20, Ken, and see the scripture.
All right, give me a second here. I did forget to add one thing.
I felt like we should reiterate. I felt like we should reiterate the points that were called out in the first one, and I went ahead and wrote them down on these notes. The first one was the existence of a third temple and that being desecrated before the end. Number 2 was Jerusalem surrounded by armies, which is the first one we're going to deal with tonight. The third one was a false or fragile peace existing, because they'll say peace, peace, and there is no peace. Right preceding the last calamity. Number 4 was the 2 witnesses, very big deal, prophesying for three and a half years there. And number 5 was, the time of Jacob's trouble, that it is a time for Israel and all of Israel, not just the nation of Judah, which properly understood is a really big clue as to who's going to be in a bad way when the end comes.
Excellent recap and save, by the way.
And we covered the third temple and the 2 witnesses last week. That they're not here yet. The temple isn't here and the 2 witnesses are not here. I mean, God can do anything he wants, but God is not going to come until what he promised would happen would happen. One way to look at it, when Christ was resurrected and he was talking to his disciples, he said, look, every prophecy in the Old Testament about me had to be fulfilled. And he explained it to them. God did everything that he said he was going to do regarding the Messiah, Jesus Christ. God's going to do everything he said he was going to do regarding preparing the world for the end.
All right, I'm ready to switch over now.
Okay.
All right, let's see. But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation is near. And let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those who are in the midst of her depart. And let not those who are in the country enter her, for these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled.
So there's one of the things that have to be fulfilled. Now we know a model of this happened in 70 AD. This is what's just called model or small fulfillment. When the Roman army surrounded Jerusalem, and then Titus pulled back for a few months to get more siege engine supplies, reinforcements, the Jews thought they had won. But the Christians remember what Christ said, and they got out of there, went 80 some miles into the mountains, and they survived the horrible siege. Well, if that's a model for the future, well, I'm going to ask a question. Obviously, that will happen to the city of Jerusalem sometime in the future. And it will trigger the escape of Christians, and they'll be told not to even go back and pack your luggage or you'll get trapped inside. The question is, will we in other parts of the world have to move to places of safety in a similar period of time? I don't know the answer to that question, and it might depend on where you live, of course. But if it's true, I assume the church will know somehow, maybe through the 2 witnesses or other things, we'll know what we should or shouldn't do when we see that happen. But you get the impression it's going to be a global trigger when army, and we mean hostile armies, surround Jerusalem.
Yep.
Yeah, do you think it could be? Do you think it could be the Iranian invasion or the retributions that Iran has for the last Israeli attack on Iran, on their centrifuges and enriched uranium?
I get it. I get the idea that it's going to be whoever. It'll be the South, the king of the South, and the Southern. My guess is the Southern United Armies in the Middle East will. My guess is that, and maybe joined by Russia and China. But we're going to know it. It's going to be pretty obvious.
Should be pretty big.
I would say so. Yes.
It could be King of the North. Go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say, like, as we expect the King of the North to be a more cohesive entity than it is now, to be more defined and to be more cohesive inside of that than it is at this point in time, I think it's reasonable to expect that same sort of thing in the southern portion. And we don't really have that right now. And I think it's important to keep in mind that the historical King of the South involves territories that are almost the most fragmented at this point in time. I mean, you're talking about Egypt, where we have a military government that's kept in power by the aid of its, more affluent Arab neighbors. You've got Libya that's divided in half right now. You've got Sudan, who has the same thing going on, long-running civil war, stuff that doesn't make the Western press all that often. And you've got a lot of like factionalism and division inside of the Arab countries and inside of Islam. And I mean, particularly in regards to Iran. But some of that's been taken out of the way, such as in Syria, where you have like now a Sunni leader coming to the fore and distancing themselves from the Iranian influence that has been there. Or you have in Lebanon right now, they're actively trying to disarm Hezbollah's factions inside of the Palestinian refugee camps and all this stuff. You almost feel like it's going to go a different way. Iran is certainly not the traditional king of the South. So while they've been like the champion of the Islamic cause, like that is not their historic role, and they're in the vast minority in the grand scheme of that. More to our point, I'm people that believe the rapture could happen at any point in time take this historical incident of the temple being defiled and Jerusalem being surrounded and being like, well, that's already happened, so he could come anytime. And yet in Scripture, there's a great deal of duality, and it seems very clear. At the end of this in verse 22, it says, "For these are the days of vengeance." So whatever happened back then, are those the days that are being referred to in context, the ultimate vengeance of God, coming and making everything right? That's not it in the grand scheme.
And by the way, who has the number one army in the Middle East right now?
Israel.
I mean, you take Palestine, Judea, and surrounding it, Lebanon and Jordan. The IDF is far and away the strongest army. Mm-hmm. The other side may have suicide bombers and crazy people, but they can only do so much damage. Israel is the big stick in the Middle East. They really are. I was joking. Carl Hill, he was joking about Turkey was complaining about Israel pushing around the Syrian border and doing stuff deep into Syria and pushing people around. And Turkey was talking big and tough. But Carl said, yeah, why don't the Turks have a pretty good sized army and air force? Why don't they send their jets over there to teach Israeli a lesson? He said, I know why they don't do it. They don't want to get embarrassed.
Yeah. There was a time
they don't want to lose them.
I think a lot of people kind of figured that what's his name in Turkey was vying for the job or the title of King of the South, but I don't know anymore.
Erdogan.
Yeah, Erdogan.
Now, he may have his chance in the future, but I'd almost bet money if he unleashed his Air Force on Israel, Israel has all those F-35s from America, and I believe they modified and improved them a little bit for combat. They blow the Turkish Air Force out of the sky, and Turkey would be embarrassed. I bet money on it. I bet the Turks know that deep down, and so he talks tough, but he's not going to do anything. Israel is too tough right now.
A big development in a lot of what's gone on in Israel and in Gaza over the last couple of years is that for the first time the European countries are sort of they're turning a little bit. Sentiment is turning against Israel at this point in time. A lot of them are primed to recognize a Palestinian state, even though obviously the PA hasn't had elections in forever, and like who's going to recognize Hamas as a legitimate entity? It's terrible and it's ridiculous. But they're having this like emotional knee-jerk reaction and the pressure that's coming on. I mean, the United States is the only one that's standing firmly on Israel's side at this point in time. But if we appreciate that in the terms of Jacob's trouble, we can see that's going to be something that could change at some point in time. Like could it be leadership? Could it be a calamity that doesn't allow us to offer the same kind of support? But that's a big prop to them right now, and their, their army and their technical prowess. We're still talking about a very small country who has to import, a great deal of what they need.
Yeah, and I did hear this yesterday. Netanyahu told the British Prime Minister, "We're cutting off all our security feed to England because Mossad apparently is very good. They warned Britain of a number of terrorist attacks, saving hundreds of lives. And they say, well, if you recognize without any strings attached, like some other countries have done, a Palestinian state, we're cutting off all intelligence." And that's going to hurt Britain. In other words, Netanyahu is playing hardball. By the way, I still think this is true. You cannot have a Palestinian state against Israel's wishes because they have the power. I mean, they have the on-the-ground military power. You can't, unless you're going to come in with a bigger army, and it's got to be a pretty tough army. Those guys are battle-hardened. You can't force it because Israel's not going to allow it. So all of it is just talk. I'm saying this to appease anti-Semitism and Muslim voters, but it really doesn't solve any problems.
Nothing will unite the Arab countries like a holy war, though.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, that is a real possibility. But the main thing is there are no armies, hostile armies surrounding Jerusalem. The IDF is the strongest army in that part of the world right now,
Sure.
Strongest Air Force and Army, and nobody even questions it. I don't think anybody doubts it. They might criticize them, but they're not going to invade Israel. They learned their lesson after 2 or 3 big wars when they got embarrassed. I don't think they want to get embarrassed anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But when that changes, and someday it will, then maybe the end is coming soon. And then also we believe a deceptive peace is coming. Kim, would you like to read Matthew 24:24, please?
For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect.
And Matthew 24:37.
But as the days of Noah were, also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days of before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be.
And other scriptures give you the impression that there's going to be a sudden, shocking. The world will think they've got it made under a great dictatorship and everybody's doing what he says. And then suddenly things are going to fall apart.
Yeah, they're not going to be afraid of us for whatever reason, because if they surround Jerusalem, they know that in current situation, the United States is going to retaliate, possibly Britain and much of Europe. But at some point, that's not an issue. Or and that's what's kind of disturbing, that we're going to be either out of the scene or considered, non-threatening or what have you, or we will have joined them
And be
Or
maybe
otherwise occupied.
Yeah,
Or be a
either
vassal
we're going to
state.
join them, or we're going to be, we're going to set it out, or can't
Yeah.
help them. One of the three.
Well,
Because right now-
Matthew. Go ahead, Dr. Ricks.
if anybody's going to invade anybody, the first thing they ask is, what is America going to do? That's the first thing they ask. They're not going to be asking that at some day in the future for whatever reason.
Yep.
Well, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, all three say, do not be deceived. So there's going to be a lot of deception in all of this. The surrounding of Jerusalem by armies, everything is just going to be deception. And the first casualty of war, it said, is the truth. And so we're in for some interesting times, I think.
Yeah.
For sure.
The two scriptures that I just read, the first one says that it would, if it were possible, even the elect would be fooled.
Sure.
If we are to believe that we are the called out ones and the elect, the ones that are called to God's truth and his word, no leftist organization or leadership is going to fool us. So you would almost think that it has to be some sort of a either in a veiled conservative movement or something that looks reasonable to most of the world, and we would normally go for that, but for some reason we can't be uh fooled by it. We won't, we're not going to be tricked by it. So I mean, so that kind of gives me an indication of what it's going to be, what it's going to look like in some sense, something that we would agree with. Maybe a religious movement, which we all know is probably what's going to happen.
Well, that might be one of the tip-offs, though. If it's joined with a false religion, if it's part and parcel, or if it's a combination, the idea that religion, that there is no state religion. America was an anomaly in its time for that reason. In most places there is a state religion. Longer ago it was a major cause of war and conflict and all of those things. If we see a return to that, and it's even if it's good values or whatever, but it's coupled with bad religion or things that we know are false based on Scripture, big red flag there. And yet most of religion has drifted so far away from Scripture that's not going to be a big clue to a lot of people. If you're not grounded in the book, like, it's not a clue anymore.
Yep.
What if armies come into the Middle East, ostensibly maybe because of religious righteousness, to protect the Jews, and they're out there somewhere against hostile neighbors from the king of the south, or whatever it is, or whoever they may be, and suddenly, just like this, they suddenly change. Instead of facing their guns outward, they turn them inward and surround the city of Jerusalem with hostile intent. But it happens quickly, just like when Hitler unleashed the Blitzkrieg on the West. They thought the war was going to be a phony war, nothing's going to happen, it's all over. And then I think it was some May morning, early in the morning, he unleashed the Blitzkrieg. Within a few weeks, before the world had seen it in the past, all of Western Europe had fallen. It was so fast, the world couldn't quite believe it. Well, with the way things are now, they could turn an army and position them even faster than that. Be like head spinning fast. What do you mean they were here to protect us and now they're surrounding us and taking over? It could happen quick. Maybe knocking out defensive positions.
Physical armies don't even have to invade now with all the drones and guided missiles and such. I mean, that would probably be the first line of attack anyway, don't you think? Instead of
it could happen
marching.
Quick.
Yeah.
And so the suddenness of it, I think, is what's implied in the Scripture. But until we see them surrounded or suddenly threatened, Christ isn't coming back. And that hasn't happened yet, because I say, the Jews have the prominent army in that part of the world right now. Nobody's got, people threaten them and all that stuff and terrorists, but no big army that I see in the Middle East is going to dare move against Israel right now. They know better.
No, not a chance.
And of course, you always worry about how peaceful. You remember you said you thought it would be religion. There could be several super religions that could put a religious face on what they're doing.
Well, the last couple popes keep talking about bringing the world's religions together, and we know all the daughters are going to come back to the church. And I mean, they're even talking about putting in, trying to draw Islam in, which could cause part of the warring that goes on in there. Islam isn't going to go along with someone else running the show, and also Hinduism and all they're trying to bring all this stuff under one big tent. This Pope is, the last couple have anyway. So we'll see how that all unfolds, but I think we know the answer to that. But the world's going to see that as a great big conservative movement. I think that's
also super AI, super intelligent AI is on the horizon as well. And there's talk of worshiping an AI.
Oh, I talked about that a couple of weeks ago. There's people that are doing that now. I mean, there's a whole website. I forget the website, but there's a whole website for it. They're kind of looking at AI. I mean, these people are absolutely, they're the same people that, marry their horse or whatever. I don't know, but they're crazy people that do this, but it's just the beginning. Who knows? But it has all the answers. They think that the AIs have all the answers. It listens to their questions. It doesn't do anything but give canned responses and basically tells you what you want to hear. I mean,
it messes with their mind.
Yeah.
It has the aura of impartiality, though, of having the sum total of knowledge and also being impartial, and that's a dangerous thing to just commit yourself to, because I mean, let's face it, it still can't turn out a photo without your hand looking like this, maybe like a little bit of that. So
you got
it's not perfect yet. It's still got problems.
It takes a long time to get there, but get what you want out of it. I had him do something and it made a donkey with one ear. I don't know. Goofy. Yeah. I mean, it's not there, and I don't like it. I'm a get off my lawn, grumpy old man that I just don't like it. I've used it for some things. I do not like what it spits out. I use it basically as a search engine. Tell me what I'm looking for. Find this or do that. I don't use it to. I just don't like it. I've had it do some stuff, and I did not like the results. I thought it was wrong, creepy wrong.
It is already a very useful tool in those ways, though, and like the aggregate of like a quick search, give me an answer in real language, like don't make me look through it myself. You can't deny some of the benefit of that, or some of its ability to churn out. There's going to be some major industries that are threatened by the things that it's able to do rapidly, like lower level programmers, or so I've read. That's kind of over my head as well, but that's what they say, and they are getting laid off. So
there's kind of a weird little test that I give search engines and now AI, and someone else did this, and I use the same thing. Ask it what the best chainsaw is. If it gives you a steel chainsaw, you've got it's right. You know what I'm saying? If it gives you that answer, you're getting good stuff back. Now I asked one of the AIs, and it gave me steel and one other brand, which was also very good, like Husqvarna.
Husqvarna, yeah.
So it gave me a good answer. Now you go on a search engine and ask, you're going to get a mess. You're just going to get ads and garbage and nothing back right. But the AI gave me a good answer.
You don't have to scroll through 18 pages of results.
Yes.
Well, one more thing to consider. A great falling away from truth, deception, is also one of the things that's going to precede Christ's coming. I want to just mention this again. Let's look at Revelation 6:2 and Matthew 24:3 and 4. And let's discuss this great falling away that's coming.
All right. And I looked, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. Oh, I need to do that. All right. Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, and the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will the sign of your coming and be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" And Jesus answered and said to them, "Take heed that no one deceives you."
The first of the four horsemen of the apocalypse is deception. Apocalypse is deception. Great deception is coming. And I'll just say this real quick. There have always been a certain amount of deception, etc., in the world. But this is going to be something bigger, huge, enormous sea change and deception unlike we've never seen before. And it hasn't happened yet, but it has to happen before Christ comes back. Deception like we've never seen before. And tell you what, would you go to Daniel 12:9? Then I want to just discuss what kinds of deceptions we might look forward to in the future.
And he said, "Go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Many shall be purified, made white and refined, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand."
Now, none of the wicked shall understand. I take that to mean the wicked people or worldly people will be deceived by this great falling away. And I think it's going to be bigger than the normal deception. Vast numbers of people it'll be statism. They'll be worshiping the state and the leader of the state, the great dictator. Just like in movies like 1980, books like 1984, Brave New World, they'll be worshiping whatever the leader says.
Well, if the leader is the beast too and able to perform miracles like calling fire down from heaven, that can get some attention real quick.
Yeah.
That could deceive a lot of people.
And a state of dependency, when you get yourself dependent on the state for everything that you need, I mean, the door is always open to a benevolent dictator. It's almost like people don't mind so much as long as they're getting what they want or what they need. If there's a real need, if there's a want, and that's alleviated by someone, it's they're welcomed. They'd be welcomed in those circumstances.
Yeah, and that's what big socialist, the kind of socialism that Mussolini and Hitler had. I think it's actually better in some ways than pure communism, but you could debate that. But I think it is better. That kind of socialism, the big corporations follow the government's lead, but the government makes the decisions. And like you said, Michael, you become dependent. So
they rose on promises to improve people's lives, to give them things that they had lost, and including glory, but also like everyday conveniences and benefits and more food and all these things that are very basic to our existence. That we, I don't think it's wise to take those kinds of things out of the equation. It's more than maybe just it's more than just like a psychological consideration or something like that. We're talking about, physical sustenance is where the rubber meets the road in the end. And somebody that provides and protects and, elevates, that's a big deal, especially when there is want.
Yeah. And once they get you dependent, then they can lie to you and you learn to believe whatever they say, right? And biblical standards are going to be kicked out quickly.
The wicked shall do wickedly. It says the wicked shall do wickedly. Well, like, what's wickedness? If it's contrary to God's law, like, big clue. Big clue. Yeah.
And people won't know any better. Well, even that calling down fire from heaven. If you are highly biblical knowledge, you have a lot of biblical knowledge, won't you recognize that as an obvious trick of Satan?
Yeah.
But could we get to the point someday where obvious Bible things a lot of people no longer remember?
Well, how many people? Go ahead, Michael.
No, you go ahead.
How many people remember the blue laws and such of the 50s and 60s? Are those going to come back? You could expect those.
I was thinking of Elijah calling down fire from heaven, and that was something that the apostles asked at Christ at one point in time. Like, shouldn't we call down fire from heaven, and go ahead and get these guys? I wonder what the comparison is there. That, like, this is what the people want. Like, get those dudes, And there, burn them up. Yeah, yay. Is that righteousness? No, or is that wickedness? Because Christ, he rebuked them for asking for that sort of thing. That's not the right attitude to be in.
But a lot of them will be in that attitude.
Yeah.
Hate the people that don't cooperate with the dear leader, whatever his exact term, the Führer, the leader, right? And they won't know the Bible. They won't know the 10 Commandments. They'll believe whatever you tell them. That deception. And I think that kind of deception is coming. That scripture in Isaiah where bitter is sweet and sweet is bitter, light is day and day is light, and up is down and down is up. Good is bad and bad is good. Some of that is coming.
Well, think about it. The whole world, with the exception of maybe North Korea, maybe China, has access to the Bible. How many of us are there out there? The world is deceived now for the most part. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, to the great extent. I mean, you tell them that Christ is the God of the Old Testament, they'll fight you. You tell them, yes, you still have to keep the 10 Commandments, they'll fight you. You can't have your bacon, they'll fight you. So are they deceived? I think so.
Well, they can have the Bibles and they can read them, but that certainly doesn't mean that they'll understand.
Exactly.
And I think just general Bible IQ is, if you would go back 60 years ago, Bible IQ was higher than it is now.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who knows what Bible IQ will be in another 10 or 15 years?
I've seen these Bible quizzes online and stuff. I mean, the newest, greenest member of the Church of God can absolutely ace these things. They're so simple, I mean, it's because, but most people have no clue how to answer the questions.
Actually, I'm going to add one more thing. I think even accurate history is going to be part of the law. A lot of people are looking at the fight about the museums, how they have twisted America's glorious history and all the successive, and they emphasize the negatives and destroy the positives. I think history, if you can distort history, that's also part of dumbing down the public and deceiving people.
Sure.
Yep. Pretty soon people aren't going to go to books. They're just going to ask AI for the answer, and whoever's running the show, that's all they're going to do. They're going to ask their phone, they're going to ask their computer for the answer, and whatever answer it gives them, for the most part, they're going to accept it.
It's a useful tool for now, but it's a further step in manipulation. It's just too easy. It's too obvious. And while there's a lot of competition, maybe that will be restrained. But and that's great for the time being. But in the future, that it's a big liability, like Ken says. It's something to be worried about.
And I tell people, get an old dictionary, the biggest, oldest dictionary you can get, and hang on to it, because if not, they're going to start changing all the meanings to words. Maybe get some history. You just leave some written word behind so people can. It's funny in the movie The Soylent Green, there was human beings called the Book. And they knew the old truths, that when they wanted to go and know something, they went to the book, and it was an old man or an old woman. And
reciting the book.
Huh?
Reciting the book.
Yeah, they had all the old knowledge, and that's how because everything else was gone.
I think this is true. I know it's complicated, but if you have some good commentaries, like on a book like Daniel, and the commentary is 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, it's probably better than a new one produced now. Because I've noticed it's not big, but little nuances in newer translations and newer commentaries, they're losing truth. Maybe to political correctness, maybe to distorted history. I'm not sure. But sometimes older books are much more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a vested interest in a lot of popular denominations to produce versions and commentaries and things like that, which pose like they don't throw up any stumbling blocks for their doctrines or anything like that, and there's some difficult scriptures that have been smoothed over. That is one of the biggest books I've ever seen. That is
my dictionary.
Wow. Look at that.
That is
that's bigger than you
Webster Dictionary, the Little Ives and Webster Dictionary Home Reference Library, 1960 something, I think. It weighs about 10 pounds.
Wow. That's impressive. Impressive.
Do you know that the Merriam-Webster Dictionary online defined vaccine? And then they changed the definition.
Oh, yeah. Yes. During COVID, they changed the definition of vaccine. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of political pressure brought to bear on that to include, mRNA type stuff, and that's certainly the trend that has been followed since that time. I've read about some other treatments that involve that kind of technology, and you get to it's a strange thing, and I don't know, you can. The changing of definitions, it affects. If you change the definitions of things in the contemporary mind, it affects everything that you go back to as well. If people believe it to be a certain thing, then you go read something old and it uses the same word. You're like, oh, that's what it means. And that's why sometimes even in Bible study, looking deeper into not only the word, but into the history and in the context, it gives you a lot more than just the surface value.
There's a danger in that. It's like in Wikipedia. Wikipedia can change day by day, just like Merriam-Webster can change the definitions in their dictionary day by day if it's online.
Wikipedia
is a battleground. Yeah, Wikipedia is a battleground. It's a.
And used to think of Wikipedia as standard stuff, but man, have they messed that up.
User curated and citations and things, and it's somebody has to put the time into it, or it's gonna go
truth
south.
Truth has become more and more relative, and that's what the world is going for. No absolute truth. Okay, let's pass over 2 Thessalonians 2:3. It's good stuff to read about the beast. I want to go to verse 9, if you don't mind. 2 Corinthians 2, verse 9.
All right. The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteousness, deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved.
Now, from the first part, we got person God is holding back this great deception. And the question is, well, when he stops holding it back, why will it work? I see the answer. People do not love the truth.
Yep. And so much about fake signs and wonders, lying signs and wonders, that comes up over and over again, that this is going to be a facet of what happens at the very end.
A time such as never was, nor never shall be again.
Yeah.
Yep. Things are accelerating in a technological sense extremely fast right now. In fact, it's accelerating so fast it's tripping over itself. It don't know where it's going to land.
And if you don't love the truth, you might like to be put in an echo box, and you only hear people who agree with you, and no objective truth is allowed in. Isn't that a terrible way of thinking?
It is. It is.
A lot of people relish that, though. A lot of psychopaths and sociopathic leaders enjoy that kind of environment, atmosphere.
And social media has offered that to a certain extent in that you get the impression that you're right and everybody agrees with you, and it's just, yeah, it's just me and what I think all the time being vindicated, and yet that's not necessarily the entire truth. I mean, if you're not, I don't know. You really find out what you believe, and it forces you to look more deeply into things when you have to say, well, wait, like, oh, hang on, let me go back. I got to check this out, and then you build and you grow your own knowledge based on things like that. And leaving people out there without a challenge ever is not necessarily a productive or a healthy mental environment to be in.
Yeah, GTA used to challenge people that they were wrong. But in a way, it often worked out long term. Get them to challenge them. And I don't think people want to be challenged anymore.
No.
Well, it's an uncomfortable thing to be told you're wrong.
It is. We have to prove things for ourselves often.
You have to love the truth. By the way, education alone doesn't protect you from deception. Germany in the 1930s was the most educated country in the world, but that didn't mean that demonic propaganda, et cetera, couldn't fool them. They can fool anybody. So the world's education, actually, if you read 1 Corinthians 2 and 3, Paul makes fun of it, worldly wisdom. So the only point I'm getting at is that deception, we're all vulnerable to it. We have to learn to love the truth.
Mm-hmm.
We have to help each other too. In case one is deceived, the rest of us can come to their aid and show them where they may have missed something.
And don't rely on, quote, experts or movie stars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even sports stars.
Well, I don't know, Dr. Ricks, but sports stars just traditionally know so much about everything. I just inherently trust them.
What about doctors?
And then if you add
people in the
sports
legal
stars
and
to
medical
singing
professions.
stars, like what's her face, there's no way they could be wrong, right?
No way. It's not possible.
A star tight end and a star singer, how could they be wrong about anything? I mentioned no names, so nobody can accuse me of saying
I have no idea what you're talking. Wait.
Yes, no idea. I actually think, let's go to Daniel 11:36.
Then the king shall do according to his own will. He shall exalt and magnify himself above every god, shall speak blasphemies against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the wrath has been accomplished. For what has been
very few. Go ahead, Ken.
For what has been determined shall be done.
God's going to allow it to happen for a few years. I think God is, in a way, testing mankind. They'll have the two witnesses preaching the truth, and they'll have vast evil propaganda pushing, I guess, what they want to hear. And evil.
Yep.
And I'm betting the majority of mankind will fail the test.
Yeah.
There is a wide road and a wide gate and a narrow way and a narrow gate. The majority is going to go that wide way.
And what we should do as Christians, as the end gets closer, try to get closer to the truth, learn more truth.
It's interesting that Christ confronted the Sadducees and the Pharisees. The Sadducees, in that they controlled the most important aspects of their religion, but didn't even believe in the resurrection, which is kind of a big crucial thing, or in angels and lots of stuff that you wonder how could you think that? Like, how could you be versed in Scripture, the Old Testament in this instance, and believe that? And then the other aspect is the Pharisees, who had a lot of truth and yet were the problem themselves in the way that they went about it, and the self-righteousness, and of course everything that went along with it. So you're talking about the vast majority of people either being irreligious and therefore out of the equation, or being underneath or at least partially absorbed into some form of deception or another, one that doesn't matter so much, and another one that's just like way overboard in an off-putting and differently wrong way. And if we talk about a 7-year ministry and the two witnesses fulfilling the second half of that, what do we have to look forward to? What do we have to look forward to in the end? How blasphemous is it for somebody like the high priest to think that there is no resurrection? That's a pretty big deal.
Matter of fact, we might get into that a little bit in part 3. I don't want to give away too much, but how the Israelite nations will fall. And I think some will be by undermining, but we can talk about that. I think be sure and stay for the conclusion next week. I believe it will be interesting. Ken, could you read Daniel 11:37, please?
He shall regard neither the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall exalt himself above them all. But in their place he shall honor a God of fortresses, and a God which his fathers did not know, he shall honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and pleasant things.
You get the impression they're worshiping a man. He worships military power. Power is what he worships, and not any historic God. Just to add to it, would you read the last verse we're going to read, Revelation 13:11, please, Ken?
Then I saw another beast, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and spoke like a dragon, and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. He performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image of the beast. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak.
And then there's more to it after that, but deals with persecution and things. We were talking about AI a minute ago.
Yes.
Is it possible they could create a big statue with the beast head on it, however it looks like, and it actually can talk to you?
Well, AI can do that right now.
Well, they could do. Well, the key to that verse, it says, "in the presence of men." To me, anyway. So there's people standing there, seeing this. So it would have to be some kind of robotics with an AI, and they're doing this AI that they're working on now, where you can talk back and forth to it, and what they were doing with robotics. Eventually, I mean, there's only a matter of time before they fuse the two. So you're talking to not just your computer screen with a image of somebody on there, but an actual bot of some sort. It's inevitable. So eventually they'll do that, and when they could do that and make some giant statue and that moves and talks and has an AI. Maybe they have an AI that they're working on. Eventually people start worshiping the AI, the online version, like we were talking about earlier, but they fuse it with this bot, this giant bot statue of some sort. It would make sense.
When they desecrate the temple in Jerusalem, I'm assuming that whoever the bad guy is, a super beast, he'll sit on a throne declaring himself he is God in the holy place in the temple. But maybe out in front of the temple, they'll place a statue of him that any visitor who's allowed to go in the courtyard, I guess, to see it, it can talk to people, maybe even have an interview with the press. The statue, and people will worship him and the statue of him. Does that sound too crazy?
No, not now.
I think when we get into the realm of technological advancement, that it's hard to predict what the future will be like, because the present is pretty much unpredictable from a historical standpoint. I mean, the kind of stuff that we take for granted, what we're doing right now, the way that we're communicating, would be wildly miraculous to somebody from even a very short time ago in the grand scheme of history. I mean, what do we talk when we talk to like this image? It's given life. It says it's given the granted the power to give breath to the image of the beast. I mean, and we start speculating about AI and all these other things. What about like a transfer of consciousness or something like that? Maybe not in a true sense, but in a technological sense, to the point that it could, to the person who's interacting with it, there is no difference. Is it really the person? No, not necessarily. Could it have all their history and experience? Are we going to be able to delve into the brain so deeply that we will be able to copy the deepest aspects of our personality into something different. I mean, we're talking about pushing the frontiers of science as we know it right now, and it's already really, really, really weird, especially when we get down to the genetic stuff and brain monitoring and all this kind of stuff. Yes. And many other companies like that, and all this DNA stuff that we're getting into. Like there's a lot of freaky cutting edge stuff out there where they're understanding the human genome better. If we talk about his deadly wound being healed, or if we talk about implanting people with cyborgy type stuff. Like I don't you don't want to speculate too wildly, but you just see that the potential for is wide open. Yeah,
it's wide open. I've actually go ahead, Dr. Ricks. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ken.
I've actually thought about this and thought you get me on this kind of tech stuff out, but I've actually thought this kind of through, and I think it's similar to the Tower of Babel. We're approaching the Tower of Babel. The reason the Tower of Babel was why their language was confused and they were all spread out, because they'd end up here, but they would ended up here thousands of years ago.
It says nothing will be restrained from them.
Exactly. We are on the verge of where nothing could be restrained from us. And I think that's why one of the main reasons Christ is returning, they're going too far. I think we're on the edge of that now. I mean, talking about going to Mars and all this, all the stuff that they're doing. They've got, the bots are getting better and better and better. And there's money in putting AI and bots for people. I mean, it's just, we're on the verge of complete insanity, the society, complete breakdown and a mess. And I don't think he's going to let it go that far. I think he's going to shut it down. I could be wrong.
You're right, Ken. Yeah, they poison the world if allowed to run wild.
Yeah,
you're right, Ken. One thing that occurred to me, throw in the spiritual dimension. Could some very highly intelligent demons inspire the programming of human beings? They don't have to be 100% possessed. Just inspire some brilliant programmers to program in an evil, I can't use the right term, tone, but a deceptive evil tone to the AI program. And all of a sudden, it is clever in an evil sort of way that...
we don't have,
anyway,
we don't quite have the power for that yet, but you never know. They may get there.
You talk about in the time of Christ, Judas Iscariot being possessed by the devil personally. What's to stop that from happening at the highest possible level in some kind of highly technological future scenario? There's really no reason to think that is not the case. Even
I think there was a 70s movie like that once, actually.
And they might even be possessing some programmers now as they build the infrastructure.
Sure,
it's not impossible, is it?
We are at some of the weirdest sci-fi moments in history, and we're living it. And we're on the precipice of where everything goes bad, right before the whole system melts down. And it's not. It's weird. Also, it's just weird.
Note the words in that verse about the false prophet. I'll call him the super pope, but he may have a more grandiose title than that. He looks like a lamb, but spoke like a dragon. Do you see how that could be? He looks pious, really pious, but his words are backing up evil dictatorships and lies and deception. The devil is clever as well as evil. We sometimes may forget that.
Oh, yeah.
And God, the way it's written up, we haven't read all the scriptures, but God is going to allow, in 2 Thessalonians, God's going to, is blocking Satan from his full deception now, but someday the block is going to be removed, and Satan will be able to put out his best deceptive, whatever it is, and I believe a lot of people will fall for it.
Well, Satan has had 6,000 years or so to study human nature and human beings. And he's a master manipulator.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
He knows how to push our buttons.
By the way, I was thinking maybe we would skip Prophecy Watch, except to say one thing. Heard a man who I think he's pretty smart on the radio. He says he's as sure as he can be that AI is going to be misused by future dictatorships. He's just as certain of that as the moon is rising or changing, whatever it does. And, full moon, half moon. And don't you believe that's true?
They have to get a hold of it, because if left unchecked, it will tell people the truth. And you can't run a planet if everybody knows the truth. You can't manipulate them. You can't keep them in the dark. You can't lie to them. You can't. If everybody gets the truth, and if you ask the current AI things about the Bible, it'll tell you that Christ is the God of the Old Testament, Saturday's the Sabbath, and so on and so forth. And we can't have that. We can't have that. That's just the religious aspect of it. The political aspect of it is even worse for them.
And we know it can be done. In China, they have the Great Wall of China where they block out a lot of internet things the government doesn't want you to see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how far it goes, but they claim in China they're watching your phone, all the information you get. If something starts on social media that the Communist Party doesn't like, they have a way of taking it down within a few hours. You only see what they want you to see.
Mm-hmm.
And this is already true in China. Can you imagine given a few more years of technology, it could get worse?
Yeah. I just really like the idea of the new digital Great Wall of China being like a big firewall that keeps people in.
Yeah.
It's not really funny, but it's kind of funny,
Somebody, or either it was somebody online or somebody they asked the differences between, I don't know if it was me or someone else, to tell you the truth, but asked the differences about communism and capitalism. It absolutely butchered communism with all the millions that died and all that other stuff, and talked how capitalism was kind of the way to go. They can't have that. They got to shut that down. So they're gonna alter the AI results, which is gonna screw up everything. Now, I think that could be the new Tower of Babel.
Yep, they're gonna alter history, alter Bible truths,
everything,
and maybe things. What your grandmother always told you about right and wrong, maybe that won't make the cut anymore.
That's why
you put it online, it'll be blocked.
That's why you need a 10-pound dictionary and pass it down to your children and grandchildren.
That Bible is bigger than your brain.
And several Bibles.
And if you do have a good old commentary, keep it.
Oh yeah.
Well, and books are cheap these days. Used books are cheap, especially if you look at auctions and things like that. Goodness, there's like college libraries and things. They're just getting rid of them for nothing.
I think I paid $2 for that monstrosity.
For nothing. Yeah. I have a massive old Random House one that I paid very little for at the used book sale, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like nothing, like $1.
In college classes, you spent a lot of money buying 4 or 5 books for every course. Maybe exaggerated, but something like that. Nowadays, they give you a laptop, and they have stuff on the laptop for you to read. But can you see where that allows more central control?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and changes very quickly, very rapidly as well. If something doesn't jive or live up to the current edicts of the leaders, they can change them.
And I would say education, even if you're in a halfway decent town, private schools and homeschooling is probably better when it comes to real truth in public schools.
Oh, there's no substitute for the there's no substitute for the education that you can personally give your children, and school alone will not do the trick. It starts at home with understanding and truth and all that, and that can be a useful supplement, especially in areas where you might personally be deficient, like math or something like that, where you can't take them all that far. But what you can give them, you still have to. People think school's going to do it. It's not going to do it on its own.
No moral teaching. You got to get that at home as best you can. As best you can. Well, I guess we're about out of time, but I want to thank everybody, and please come back next week for the conclusion. I think it's going to be worth it. Come back next week to see us discuss Jacob's trouble and how I think it possibly could happen. But we'll kick around some other possibilities how it could happen too, because I think right now world hegemony is in the hands of America. That does not fit Bible prophecy.
Nope. Well, I want to thank everyone for watching. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Michael, for filling in at the last minute for us. And we'll see everyone back here. We had a lot of activity in the chat room tonight. I thank all you chat room people, chatters. So we'll see you back again here next week. Have a great rest of your Sabbath, and good night, everybody.
Yep.
We're happy you could make it, and so glad you are here, and hope that we've been able to make God's word more clear. Until next time, may God be with you in everything you try. But for now, till next week, we have to say goodbye.